From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Wally Langfellow, along with Eric Nelson, will be joining me shortly as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical Minnesota sports scene. And yes, you do not see Eric, but you will now. He is in Denver, Colorado, getting ready to come back on an airplane very soon. So what, did you go to Denver to rub it in because the Timberwolves knocked off the Nuggets? I don't understand the attraction. Or were you there this week to see the Rockies play my team, the team formerly known as the Cleveland Indians? What is it?
Well, first and foremost, I had 3 chances to see the Rockies. None of the games I chose, which was one, was against your team, Cleveland. I saw them play Philadelphia on Saturday night. And,
okay.
Quite an effort for the Phillies as they got a 3-run Oppo home run to left field by Bryce Harper to win in the 9th inning. But rubbing it in as far as the Timberwolves knocking out the Nuggets, and at this point in time, that's clearly the pinnacle moment in the Minnesota Timberwolves season. About a week and a half ago, right here in Colorado, when they rallied from 20 down and eliminated the NBA champions. I've got family out here, and let me tell you, they are salty about that.
Uh-oh.
They're still angry that Minnesota got rid of Denver, but the way things are going, that's as good as it's going for Minnesota, clearly.
Did you get fed and or kicked out of those homes is my question. People that were so salty about that Minnesota win over Denver.
We're still all good. They invited us back to go to Breckenridge, which is a great spot, high in the Rocky Mountains. So, no, this was basically a Memorial Day weekend vacation with the kids, and we had a lot of fun, did some hiking, and got exhausted, played some mini golf, watched the Philadelphia Phillies, Colorado Rockies.
Okay.
So a lot to do out here.
All right. Let's get into the Timberwolves a little bit. They, for their part, got to the Western Conference Finals, but boy, I'll tell you, a couple of dagger losses. First of all, losing the 2 at home, particularly Game 2, and then you go down to Dallas against, this Dallas Mavericks team that has already beat you twice by a total of 4 points in the first 2 games, I might add. Then you go down there, trailing most of the game, but they come back in the third quarter. Anthony Edwards with a signature dunk. Looks like they're making the trail back. They take the lead. Actually, they led for a fair portion of the fourth quarter, but it's those last 5 or so minutes of the game where things continue to fall apart for your Minnesota Timberwolves. And that has been the story that really headlined this series against the Dallas Mavericks. And, I don't know, there's a lot of folks talking about what can they do long-term, fixes of this, fixes for that. Is Karl Anthony Towns a great fit? He shot horribly, obviously, in those first 3 games. But I guess my question is, going forward, is this team ready to take it to the next level? And, that goes into next year and in the offseason. What do you do? What do you change?
Yeah, well, maybe the Minnesota Timberwolves simply weren't ready for this moment. Perhaps the stage got too big. Some people think they're fatigued. They're exhausted. They're worn out. Well, somebody better let these guys know that if you want to win in 16 postseason wins, let alone the long, grinding regular season where you're typically going to need a 4 seed or higher. Now, Dallas could be the exception here. They're a 5 seed, the Mavericks. But, you brought up Ants Dunk in Game 3. It was explosive. It was a poster jam, right? I mean, I think a lot of fans thought it would be a trampoline, and the Timberwolves would use that as a springboard to a win in that game. But it wasn't. It was just a moment in the third period. And as you said, one of the major things here is Dallas with 2 superstars in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. The Mavericks know how to close out games. They know how to seal the deal. These guys are excellent. The fourth quarter has belonged to the Mavericks. Ant, I think, has been inconsistent in this series, and Cat's been invisible. Now, everybody wants to bury Cat. I'm not going to go that far, because without Cat, I don't think they're where they are. They had to have a healthy Karl Anthony Towns this season to get as far as they did. But he, along with his other teammates, have to step it up even more. And let's not forget, part of the Timberwolves' success, at least in the regular season and part of the playoffs, is Cat usually can sink the 3 balls at a decent ratio. But he's not doing it against Dallas, and that's when he has to realize, all right, I got to find another way to help this team win. And that's maybe his to me, the glitch for Cat is that he's be too stubborn on thinking he has to keep launching the three balls. Go down on the block and get your points another way, or play better defense or whatever.
I think you brought up a good point a little bit earlier, and I heard Kevin Garnett, our very own KG, who has not been invited to join the Timberwolves at Target Center throughout the postseason, and I think that that's a mistake. But I heard him talk about the fact that this team was not physically ready to endure a long playoff run. These guys, they're usually done by May 1st, as you well know, or early May. Well, you get into late May and into early June, that's an extra month of high intensity, very physical basketball. And he really believes that, this is KG talking now, that has been part of the issue for the Minnesota Timberwolves this year because they just weren't prepared. The young Timberwolves, they were not prepared to endure the physicality and the length of this season. He says he talked about the fact that Michael Jordan would have his guys playing basketball until early July. So if they got eliminated, he'd get these guys out and they would go, and they didn't get eliminated a lot, of course, in the 90s. But prior to that, he'd get his guys and they'd go out and they'd hoop right until, early July so that they're ready to go. They're ready to play until, late June, early July.
Yeah, and I think what KG says, because I certainly respect his opinion, he's in the Hall of Fame, he's been in the NBA and knows what a grind it can be. I think there's kernels of truth in what he's saying. But on the flip side, you could argue, my goodness, how young is Ant? He's 22 years old. Guy, with the exception of Mike Conley, Minnesota's a young team. You would think they would have the bounce, the extra pep in their step, and be ready to take down more of a veteran squad like the Dallas Mavericks. The other thing I want to bring up, and maybe this is part of the process for the Timberwolves. Maybe a year from now, we're looking at a team that takes the next step, gets to the NBA Finals, and we all talk about the growth that some teams have to have on a championship. Maybe we aren't, because if you look at Oklahoma City, the Thunder were a top seed. They got knocked out by Dallas. You don't think OKC's not going to approach the season next year like Minnesota? We know Denver's not going away. I'm here in Colorado. They are not happy the Nuggets went out as early as they did. Certainly Dallas is going to stick around. We have other great teams in the West. So the assumption that this will just be part of the process is a dangerous way to think. As we know in Minnesota, Wally, next year never comes.
Yeah, well,
at least
it hasn't come since
1991.
Exactly. I'm just going to fill in the blank. You did it for me, since 1991. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more Minnesota Timberwolves, and we'll talk some more NBA with Trent Tucker, the former Minnesota Gopher and Chicago Bull who won a championship with Michael Jordan. That and more coming up next. You are listening and watching Minnesota Scores 10,000 Takes. Stay with us.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I'm owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. Maya? Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Get away to Lakeville, Minnesota, where your family will have tons of outdoor fun. Come for the nature and stay for the thrills. Bring the bikes, swimsuits, fishing poles, and walking shoes as Lakeville boasts trails, lakes, and beaches. Plan your itinerary at visitlakeville.org today.
Welcome back. Wally Langfellow, Eric Nelson. We are still regurgitating what has gone on with the Minnesota Timberwolves. And to help us do that, we will be rejoined now by Eric Nelson at the airport in Denver. and our good friend Trent Tucker, the former Minnesota Gopher great, of course, won an NBA title with Michael Jordan and the Bulls. All right, Trent, I'm going to throw this out at you.
All right.
As you look at this Timberwolves team, how it is currently constructed, are they championship caliber going forward?
I think the window is still open for this team, and they are championship caliber. I mean, when you look at the Final Four teams who are left right now, they are as good as anyone, to maybe have a chance to get to an NBA final over the next 2 years.
I want to get your thoughts through the first 3 games. Cat was 4 for 32 behind the 3-point arc. He was 0 for 8 in Game 3 in Dallas, and he's been a pinata. Everybody's been banging on him. Now, your specialty, back before the 3-ball was really as huge of a deal as it now was, but you were a shooter. Now, you weren't down on the block as much as Cat. But I've heard, shooters like Kobe say, well, I just keep launching until I have success. Now, do you think Cat needs to stay in that mindset, or because he's a big guy, a tower, that he needs to get down low and when he's slumping, find another way to score?
I think he needs to go down low to try to balance off his game. When the outside shot is not going, he's going to have to try to find a way to help his team offensively. And when they had their success against the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets, Karl Anthony Towns balanced his game off by taking the ball strong to the basket. And when he does that, it also puts pressure on the defense when they pick up fouls, and now he allows his teammates to get to the free throw line as well.
Tim Conley built this team, or helped build this team. Let's face it, Anthony Edwards was here. That was a Garrison Rosas draft choice. But Tim Conley built this team with the mindset of trying to do or beat the Denver Nuggets, the team that won the NBA title last year. Brought in Rudy Gobert. And obviously they had a very successful season. But does this team with playing bigs, because there are very few teams in the NBA that rely on bigs like the Minnesota Timberwolves did this past season. Is that a workable situation going forward, or do you think that they have to be ready to play a team? They have to be able to do both, don't they? Play a team like Dallas that's guard heavy, or play a team like Denver when you got the Joker who is, such a big load in the middle. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a team that is built to play both ways, and they have the personnel to make the adjustments. And when you look at how they matched up well against the Denver Nuggets, they could go big. When you look at the first 2 games on their home floor, I mean, they had a 9-point lead with about 40 or 50 seconds to go in the first half. They turned the ball over in the backcourt, allowed Dallas to score 6 points to cut the lead to 3. They had an 18-point lead in game 2. They turned the ball over, made some bad mistakes, didn't run back on defense 2 or 3 times. All of a sudden, the Dallas Mavericks cut the game 12. So that has nothing to do with the personnel that's on the team. That's about a group of guys coming together and finishing off the deal. And the reason the Wolves are down 3-0 is not because they play big. It's because their best 2 players have not been able to deliver like they did in the first 2 series.
Trent, you've been around the NBA a long time as a player, as an observer. This tandem of Kyrie and Luka, now together they have yet to win a title, so there's still more work to be done. But are they the top duo right now in the NBA?
Well, they're the top duo right now that the Wolves are facing for sure. I mean, because, when they first started out, they had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Well, they took them down, and they lost 3 games to them in the regular season. But they had the personnel to make an adjustment to play against a smaller and quicker basketball team. So I don't think making wholesale changes at the end of the year would be the right thing to do for this team. Now you go up against the Denver Nuggets, defending the NBA champions with perhaps the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, and Jamal Murray is as good as any guard in the game today. They found a way to take them down in 7. The Wolves, to me, are the better basketball team. They just have not been able to execute at critical moments. And by making so many mistakes throughout the course of the game, have allowed the Dallas Mavericks to get themselves into position where 1 or 2 shots can make a difference to close the game out.
How much of the Timberwolves' difficulty against Dallas specifically, because they obviously there were some games where they struggled against Denver. Let's not forget that they lost by 27, 28 points in one game. But how much of the difficulties they had with Dallas and even the games in Denver do you relate to the youth, to the fact that they have not been this deep in the playoffs? Nobody on this team has been this deep into the postseason. KG talked about it, and he said that they just haven't, they're not physically ready for it because they haven't been this deep. What are your thoughts?
Well, I will push back a little bit on that is because I think they are prepared for this moment. When you have an 18-point lead in the second quarter, you are prepared to play against this team. I think the things that have hurt the Wolves mostly in this first 3 games, it's been all about themselves. Taking care of the basketball, understanding what you're supposed to do in the defensive end. If we're going to trap the pick and roll, trap the pick and roll. If we're supposed to rotate, let's rotate. Dallas has not been a team that the Wolves cannot play against. Dallas has capitalized on the mistakes at certain moments during the game, at critical moments, like I mentioned before, to make a play here or there to make a difference. So the Wolves have really put themselves in a situation to be down three games to 0, more so than that Dallas dominated them in the first 3 games.
Trent, earlier this week, we lost an NBA icon in Bill Walton, who was outstanding in college at UCLA and then later in the association with Portland and Boston. I know your careers intersected, at various points. Did you know Bill at all? Your thoughts on his impact?
I got to know Bill Walton, and he was a delight just to be around to talk to. I grew up as a basketball fan, in the late 60s and early 70s, when he was dominating the college basketball world at UCLA, and having the opportunity to play against someone that you idolized when you was a kid, was a special treat indeed.
Trent, before we let you go, the Boston Celtics are in the NBA Finals. They sweep the Indiana Pacers. What makes this Celtics team so good besides the 2 J's, Jason and Jaden?
I think Drew Holiday for one, and Derek White for number 2. Those 2 guys who are such a huge factor to their success, especially in their last playoff run against the Indiana Pacers. So when you talk about your star players doing what they have to do, but those 2 guys right there coming down the stretch, they have been able to make plays time and time again. And just by asking about what makes Boston so special, when you look at what the Wolves are, the Wolves teammates, their teammates have done the job. Gobert's done his job. Jade McDaniels has some good games here and there. Naj Reed is giving you a nice punch off the bench. Mike Conley Jr., it seems like he's finding his outside shot. Kyle Anderson gave you a really good punch in game number 3. But if your best 2 players cannot be at their best at this time of the year, it's going to be hard for any team to win if they're trying to play for a championship.
Trent, I think that kind of sums it up, and it really does, that the Wolves need for Cat and Ant to be at the top of their game. Trent, appreciate you spending some time with us, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
He is Trent Tucker, the former Minnesota Golden Gopher great, and of course played with Michael Jordan, winning an NBA title back in the day. We'll be back with more here on 10,000 Takes after this timeout. Stay with us.
Let your adventure begin in Lakeville, Minnesota. We have over 90 places to grab a bite to eat, and we're close to the Mall of America, Valley Fair, and the Minnesota Zoo, plus hotel packages and great rates. Visit Lakeville. We're serious about fun all year round.
When you see somebody who's a great skater, you can see in their individual rhythm. My name is Christian Grunna. I am owner, head coach, operator, main instructor for Grunna Power Skating. We had a history of not just speed skating, but auto racing in our family, so always interested in being fast. I want every player that comes my way to develop their skills, but also grow confidence in themselves as a human being.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
We are 10,000 Takes. Wally Langfellow, along with Eric Nelson, who joins us once again from Denver, Colorado, sitting in the airport. I don't know, what are you playing, bingo, or what are you doing there?
Right now I'm doing a sports show, but, like
amazing.
MSP, this is a busy airport, hub to a couple of airlines, Frontier and United, so things are picking up here at what they call DEN, Denver International Airport.
Okay. You mentioned earlier in the show you went and watched the Rockies play. They are bottom of the barrel in the National League. Your Minnesota Twins have seemed like a bottom of the barrel team at times and have seemed like world beaters at other times. The 12-game winning streak, 17 out of 20, the 7-game losing streak, which followed that 12-game winning streak closely thereafter. Where do you think this team is going to land, and what's it going to take for them to stay on the high side?
Yeah, it's really hard to get a read on the Minnesota Twins. They're like they're a stock market team. They're up one day, down the next. And it's funny because with the Timberwolves on this run, which looks to be coming to an end here quickly, they've been eclipsed through the good and the bad. The Twins just haven't gotten a ton of attention because the T-Wolves have gone to uncharted waters basically for the first time in 20 years, and that is Western Conference Finals. What are the Twins? How good are they? What are the streakiness? I would say this: the key thing is your club, Cleveland, has kept winning, and the Twins are behind Cleveland and Kansas City entering the week. Now they're playing the Royals. There's some good things, obviously. You got to like this young pitcher, Simeon Woods Richardson. Pablo Lopez, though, has struggled in his last 3 starts.
Yes.
That's a concern. I think you have to like what you're getting out of Max Kepler. He's contributed. Byron Buxton is back in the lineup when Rocco lets him play. So he's off the injured list. When's Royce Lewis coming back? We're being told that's soon. This will be interesting. 2 things with Royce. He brings a jolt of energy, right? We know that. Fans already love him.
Right.
But can he stay on the field? If Royce Lewis can avoid the injured reserve, this team's going to be much better because he's that good. We saw the impact he had in the playoffs against Toronto and even briefly against Houston. But I don't know what to make of this team right now. They are a roller coaster.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I think that the Twins actually have a good problem should they stay healthy between now and the time Royce Lewis gets back. When he comes back, Jose Miranda has actually played pretty well. So do you move him into a DH spot, that is Jose Miranda, or do you move him over and take some innings away from Carlos Santana at first base? I think Santana is such a good defender along with his veteran leadership and the power that he brings. I don't think that they're going to do much with that. I think they'll probably leave Carlos alone. But I like what, Jose Miranda, who is having a bounce back year. Let's not forget, he had an injury last year. He was not very good. Spent a lot of time in the minors. Didn't even make the opening day roster this year for the Twins, but he has been a plus since he has come back into the majors.
Well, I think, first of all, you never complain about having more depth. Every manager wants that on his baseball team. And, the way the Twins and Rocco and Derek Falvey and Thad Levine approach this thing, we know they're computer-driven. They're very analytical. If this was a team like, let's just use the LA Dodgers as an example, who trot out basically the same 9 every night, especially the 1 through 5 guys in the lineup. As you know, that's not the case with the Twins. It's a mix and match, plug and play scenario. So Rocco's just going to base it on what the computer and the numbers are saying as far as who should play when. So I don't know if it really makes a difference on the Twins.
Yeah, great point. All right. Well, we'll dig into this more further down the road as we watch the rest of this season go by. When we come back, though, takes of the day coming up. You are watching 10,000 Takes, your sports ticket. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years.